COVID-19 and America's nursing homes. That's the subject of today's ACTEC Trust and Estates Talk.
Welcome to ACTEC Trust and Estate Talk from the American College of Trust and Estate Counsel, a professional society of peer-elected trust and estate lawyers in the United States and around the globe. This series offers professionals best practice advice, insights, and commentary on subjects that affect our profession and clients. And now, our ACTEC fellow host with today's topic.
This is Ed Beckwith, ACTEC Fellow from Washington, D.C. The safety of the most vulnerable among us is of keen concern to all of us. To tell us more about this important topic, we will be hearing today from ACTEC Fellow Professor David English of Columbia, Missouri. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Ed. I'm going to summarize today presentations I gave to the ACTEC Elder Law Committee in June and October of 2020. When we first became aware of the COVID-19 pandemic towards the beginning of the year, it became apparent quite quickly that residents of nursing homes were being impacted more than others. In fact, as of October 21, 2020, which is 2 days before my presentation, the New York Times, which keeps track of the data, estimated that 84,000 residents and staff of long-term care facilities had died of COVID-19. And because in late October, there were a total of 220,000 deaths, close to 40% of the deaths from COVID-19 have occurred at long-term care facilities. And the number is staggering when you take into account that the number of nursing home residents in the U.S. as a whole is around 1.3 million. And so why have nursing home patients been so vulnerable? Well, of course, many of them are in a fragile physical condition. So if they contract COVID-19, their risk of death is much higher than the general population. So the real issue is, why have so many residents of nursing homes contracted COVID-19? And I'm going to present 5 reasons, which is not only me, but it comes out of a federal commission report I'll talk about in a minute. One is lack of infection control. The General Accountability Office, which is an arm of Congress, estimated that prior to the pandemic, approximately 388,000 nursing home residents died yearly from infections, and that is not a typo. During the period of the pandemic, lack of personal protective equipment, PPE, has been a continuing issue in long-term care facilities, and it still is, even in late October. The design of nursing homes is not conducive to preventing infection. Many nursing homes are constructed like college dormitories. They have long hallways. They have large common areas where individuals congregate. And I'll talk in a few minutes about an option or alternative to that. Fourth issue is staff shortages. This is not a new issue. This goes back decades. And it's not only shortage of human help, but also shortage in particular of trained staff, particularly trained on issues of infection control. And a final reason is inadequate testing. The Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services is the regulatory agency for nursing homes. And until relatively recently, their guidance on testing was advisory only to facilities. So what are some of the responses that have been taken that hopefully will provide some help on this issue as we go forward? Number one, the CARES Act, which was enacted by Congress earlier this year in 2020, contains funding to address COVID-19 in nursing homes. And the Trump administration on July 22nd announced an initiative of up to $5 billion for training on infection control, hiring of additional staff, particularly staff dealing with infection control, assistance with technology so that residents can stay in touch with their family, because that's been another major byproduct is social isolation when nursing homes went on lockdown. And then finally, to receive this federal funding, the nursing homes are required to test their staff, at least weekly, if the community positivity rate is more than 5%, which at least currently describes most of the United States. Unfortunately, that's still rolling out, and testing is not yet being done on a consistent basis across the country, but it's starting. A second recent development that's of quite important is the ability to visit your loved one who is in the facility. So in March, many facilities went on lockdown, and so family were no longer allowed to visit, even at the patient's end of life from COVID-19 or some other condition. And so the guidance from Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, or CMS, deals with outdoor visitation and also visitation indoors, not as a general matter, but opens the door for visitation for what's called compassionate care, which would be care at the end of life. I mentioned several reasons why the COVID-19 pandemic has been so serious in nursing homes. And there is now a federal report that is worth reading if you're interested in this. In April, the Trump administration appointed a commission. It's called the Coronavirus Commission on Safety and Quality in Nursing Homes. And if you Google that, you'll get their report, which was published on September 16th. And so the report recognizes the problems that I discussed, some of the reasons for the seriousness of the pandemic in nursing homes, but it does recommend ways of responding. It's a long report, so I'm going to highlight, I'll call the key four. One is we need a national testing strategy for long-term care facilities. Currently, it's being addressed very much on a state-by-state ad hoc basis. CMS should assume responsibility to ensure supply of PPE. All long-term care facilities, according to the Federal Commission, should have a 3-month supply. More support should be provided for staffing, particularly staffing not by custodial aides, but by RNs. And then finally, the nursing home should employ infection control specialists who have the ability to educate other staff, and that may be the most effective or important of the recommendations. Longer term, we need to think about the whole way that nursing homes are constructed and how we pay for long-term care in this country. So our current federal funding model is slanted heavily towards providing assistance for Medicaid nursing home reimbursement. And at least in some states, funding is starved for community supports that can keep people out of nursing homes. And so to me, that is an important long-term objective. And secondly, the design of nursing homes. And so an example of a different design is the greenhouse movement, which are facilities that don't have 100 residents or 50 residents. They're basically group homes with 10 to 12 residents. Each resident has a single room and also a private bath. And the private bath, very important to prevent spread of infection. But of course, lawyers have clients who have issues now. Some people listening to this podcast may have family members currently in long-term care facilities. So what sort of practical steps can you take now? Well, time doesn't allow me to go through those practical steps, but I'm going to quickly mention the name of 4 organizations who each have websites devoted to the COVID-19 issue. And if you just simply Google these names, you'll have links to the websites with huge amount of not only legal type information, but consumer type recommendations. So the first of these is Consumer Voice. Second is Justice in Aging. Third is the Center for Medicare Advocacy. And the final one is the Long-Term Care Coalition. Thank you for your time.
David, thank you for alerting us to this truly life and death concern and providing us with such practical and helpful guidance.
Thank you for listening to this episode of ACTEC Trust and Estate Talk, the podcast series about wealth planning matters from the American College of Trust and Estate Counsel. To find an ACTEC lawyer near you, visit actec.org. Please subscribe to this series and leave us a rating or a review. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at ACTEC Talk.